A virtual town hall is set to take place tonight. The focus, the impacts of redlining. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm News 8 digital anchor Luke Laster here from the Wood TV live desk. Joining me this afternoon is Liz Keegan. She'll be speaking at the town hall, and she's also the Director of Education and Outreach for the Fair Housing Center of West Michigan. Liz, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thanks for taking some time here. Before we dive into the town hall and what will be discussed, can you explain redlining to those who may not be familiar with the term?
Sure. So it's a term that actually comes from color coding of maps that occurred in the 1930s in over 200 American cities. They had to be about 100,000 people or larger. It was an effort of looking at helping people come out of the Great Depression in terms of refinancing and offering some relief related to home loans under a law that essentially created the opportunity for communities to be mapped, looking at places where they were going to try to invest in communities. They were scored throughout the country. As I mentioned, there were over 200 cities, Grand Rapids, Muskegon, a number of other Michigan communities were big enough at that time to be mapped. And as you might guess, the lowest scoring grade was color-coded red. There's the idea that we get red-lined maps from there, but they were graded A, B, C, and D in terms of who was living there, what sort of amenities came into the community, what sort of natural resources were there. There were a number of different factors, but they were heavily looking at housing and opportunities to invest in public infrastructure. Unfortunately, the communities or the subsets of the communities that got scored a D or even a C, a yellow area, really didn't receive the same amount of investment in public infrastructure and other relief programs as the higher scoring neighborhoods. So that's where we get the term redlining, because you can look at these maps and literally see which areas were color-coded red.
So tonight's town hall, 6:30 to 8 o'clock. Tell me what it will talk about and what you're hoping comes from tonight.
Sure. So from our fair housing perspective, what we do is investigate illegal housing discrimination, which was also a part of, unfortunately, what happened in this mapping was that the race of the residents of the neighborhood was taken into account. And we're seeing the ripple effects of those underinvested neighborhoods, which were largely inhabited by people of color. We're seeing those effects today, and we're better understanding how those neighborhoods that got left behind are struggling today and who's living in those neighborhoods today. So I'll kind of provide a very quick overview like I did right now about that history and just trying to help people understand, why does it matter that these neighborhoods were left behind almost 100 years ago? Well, now we can look at maps and show that these neighborhoods that were redlined have more pavement, less trees. You're less likely to live as long as you could if you're living in a different neighborhood that didn't fare so poorly. So I'll be trying to connect some of those dots and talking about it in terms of race for this town hall.
In your role specifically, what are you hoping comes from it?
I'm really excited that the Momentum Center is highlighting this issue. I think people are much more likely to better, connect the dots and understanding how that history is really impacting us today. There's a lot of interest in neighborhoods and how they're changing. Our housing market is at a real crisis. It was at a crisis before the pandemic. It's been exacerbated by the pandemic. There's just not enough housing, or the housing that is available isn't affordable to everyone. It's not accessible to everyone, and it doesn't meet the needs of the people that we're hoping to house in our communities. So we've got a real gap in housing availability coupled with strong trends of housing discrimination. So I'm hoping to help people recognize discrimination and also better understand some of that history and how it's impacting our neighborhoods today.
Why do you believe educating the public and holding this meeting is important?
I think it's really critical to understand how we can work together. I think there's a lot of interest in how our communities are faring. There's a lot of resources coming available. So it's a really timely conversation to look at, are we distributing the resources that are coming online as a result of the pandemic equitably? Are we really trying to lift all neighborhoods and all people up so that we can keep people here in West Michigan? This is a phenomenal place to live, but not everyone feels welcome and not everyone can get the housing that meets their needs. So in order for us to thrive, I think we really need to have these difficult conversations, recognizing the history, looking at the impact today, and then talking about what we can do together as a community to address it.
Why now? Why hold this now?
That's a great question. I think it's really good timing in terms of there's a lot of dialogue coming in nationally and locally about race and about the disconnect, I think, between segments of the community. So I think it's really critical that we have, number one, this is going to be a really well facilitated, intentional event, which I really appreciate the effort Momentum Center is putting into having meaningful, respectful dialogue to look at this history, look at opportunity for our neighbors. And also, I think, we've seen a huge trend, a jump in the number of housing discrimination cases at our Fair Housing Center. So I think that's indicative that we need to be talking about this, looking at this, thinking about this in order to make sure that our communities really are successful for everyone.
So you'll be on the call tonight. Who else will be involved?
We have a gentleman from Guaranteed Mortgage, Titus Davis, and there's going to be facilitators, I understand, that are volunteering to help with small breakout groups. So after we kind of talk for a short amount of time, we will then go into Zoom breakout small meeting groups and have facilitated dialogue with whoever joins us.
So again, this virtual town hall tonight, 6:30 to 8. Those who are interested in registering, how do they do so? That is required, I believe. Is registration beforehand?
Yes. I would go to the Momentum Center website, and their calendar has a link to register.
Excellent. Any final thoughts? Anything else that you'd like to put out there?
I just really encourage people to register and sign up and attend with an open mind and help us think creatively about how to make sure that we are welcoming all and keeping everyone in our communities.
Liz, we really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Folks, if you maybe tuned in halfway through the stream here or just now clicking in, there's a link attached to the stream. It'll take you over to woodtv.com where you're able to find our full conversation there. This has been a look at the Wood TV Live Desk. I'm News 8 digital anchor Luke Laster. Have a great afternoon, folks, and we'll see you around.